Here we go. How's everyone doing? I'm going to go ahead and we're not quite at the hour yet, but we wanted to go ahead and come on early and give everybody a chance to kind of sign on before we get started. And I love to see just all the names of we've got almost 10,000 real estate agents, which makes this one of the largest webinars in real estate, independent webinars. So thank you to all the community who support Palm Agent, all the title companies that help partner with us throughout the country and support all of the real estate agents. You know, Palm Agent's free, and it's not because we're all so charitable and we work for free. We've got great title sponsors across the country that have helped invest in this and bring this to everyone. So as we're all signing on, if you wouldn't mind going to the chat and just kind of telling us where you're from. We love seeing all the different Indianapolis, Chicago, Dallas. We've got California. We should have all 50 states today, which is exciting. And also, I'm not going to be taking questions because we have a ton to go through. This is going to be a really cool webinar, one of the best we've ever done. But you can ask questions in the chat. As long as it doesn't get too distracting, we'll leave it on. And we have staff on hand that can answer some of the questions. And if for some reason we don't get to it, we can also email or call or follow up with you after the webinar. So anything at all that you think about, fire away. Not anything, but almost anything. And also, I'm going to be showing Palm Agent. And if I were you, I would have your app out and walking through it with me. I think it's just a better way to learn and experience the changes in the new calculators we're going to be showing, just to make sure you understand it with me. Just remember, we have all 50 states. Costs are going to be different on what I'm showing versus what you see because these are built specifically for each of your areas. So just as you're going through, keep that in mind. But again, it's just a better way to learn it, in my opinion, of teaching this 20 years of doing it with me. So have your app out and ready to go. Mike, if you want to pull up our slides, let's go ahead and dive in, everyone. A lot to cover. Three main topics, though. One, I'm going to go through the new buyer agent compensation calculator. I know a lot of us are tired of hearing about all the changes and the lawsuits and the drama, and this has been going on for years already. However, I think we can play a really important role, and I think we're going to have, the Palm Agent community is going to have a distinct advantage over all the agents that don't have this, because we've created a calculator that really is seamless, simple, and easy to explain the 5 different ways that a buyer agent commission or compensation can be funded. And a lot of the community doesn't know about it. A lot of us don't even know. There's 5 different options. And a lot of buyers feel like, so if the seller doesn't pay it, we have to pay it. That doesn't sound like an option. It sounds like you're forcing my hand. They don't love hearing that. So to be able to lay out strategically, thoughtfully, different options for them really is a game changer. So we're excited about that calculator. I also want to go in and talk about what I think maybe in the last 10 years is the best calculator we've ever created, is the buy now or buy later. It's the conversations a lot of our buyers are asking about. So I'm going to go through that in detail to make sure we know where it is, we know how to use it. I joke that I've sold 6 houses using this calculator in the last year. I had an early copy, but as we were testing it and playing with it, I would talk to my friends and neighbors. And my next door neighbor literally lives there because he was going to wait for rates to come down. He didn't want anything with a 6 or a 7 in front of it. And as I explained to him, timing interest rates usually isn't the best strategy because also you're dealing with supply and demand. And in 2020, when rates came down really fast, demand went up and you couldn't buy a house. And actually buying and refining, and depending on what you think about inflation, depending on what you think about appreciation, there's different ways to look at this. And as I logically walk these friends and family through this, it became the light bulb moment of, it is in my best interest to buy right now, and houses aren't getting cheaper. And so I'm really excited. I want to go through that one and make sure that we all are equipped with it. We all know how to use it. And then I want to mention, we're going to be doing a masterclass series starting in January, where we're going to pick 1 or 2 calculators a week and go through a little more in depth. So instead of showing you 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, we're going to go deeper into one to make sure you really know how to use it. So I'm excited about those coming up soon. Be looking for them in your email. Now, one thing I want to mention before we get started is everyone should have an update that asked you with a pop-up that said, what would you like your default commission structure to be? Do you want on the buyer agent side, do you want to quote 3% every time? Do you want to quote 2.5%, 2%, 0%? How do you want your buyer's estimates to quote? And then also, how do you want your seller's side? Do you want it to be 3 and 3 and 3 and 2 or 3 and 0? And so we're letting each individual user decide how their defaults are set. And if you miss the pop-up, you can also go in the top right of your screen, it says options. You can go in and say defaults, and you can jump over and see what your default settings are. So that's important. We couldn't just do like we did in the past and make any kind of assumptions. So that's one small tweak. Make sure you've gone in and you've kind of customized who's paying what. You can change it when you're doing a specific scenario. These are just your defaults for an everyday scenario. So just make sure you've gone in, have those settings plugged in, and you're aware of it. I just wanted to mention it while we're on here. Now, I want to go into the buyer agent compensation calculator. Before I launch into it, though, I want to talk about this because I've talked to Alicia Essig, who's going to be our guest here in a few minutes. And I've talked to a few hundred real estate agents. I'm not a realtor. Both my parents, I grew up in a real estate family, both brokers in the early 80s. And so it's all I've ever done. And this is the only job I've ever had. I've worked in the calculator side. So I've been in real estate my whole life. But I talked to a lot of realtors. And I'm like, how's it going with the new, buyer agent compensation agreements, getting them signed, all that stuff? And I think about 10% of you are really rock stars. I'm not that person, by the way. 10% are going through all the details, having all the conversations, make sure everybody knows what they're signing. 90%, it seems like, and again, this is a little bit anecdotal. I've just did my own research. This isn't scientific. 90% are kind of like, everybody's still offering it. I don't want to make too big of a deal about it. Sign this. The seller's still paying it. Nothing's changed. Blah, blah, blah. Everybody has to sign it. This is the new law. My mother has to sign it if I show her a house. Everyone's signing it. So 90% of us are kind of choosing that path. Not going to make too massive a deal and go to too many details and scare anyone off. I'll answer your questions if you ask them. The only problem with that strategy, and I don't think it's hit yet. I don't think, this is still brand new. So the only problem with that strategy is we're going to have, Mike, hit my clicker for me. We're going to have some people, not me, my wife is a dentist, very detailed, who read the contract. They don't just sign whatever you say to sign. They read the contract and they go, wait a second, Jeremy, this says that if they don't offer compensation, that I'm going to owe it. So I'm going to owe you 30 grand. Wait, I don't know if we're going to have people that read the contract thoroughly and bring that up. So if we do, what are we going to say to that? That's where I think this calculator I'm going to show you can be really, really valuable. Really great at educating them on their options. Secondly, if we haven't run into it yet, there will be a landmine at some point where sellers like, I'm not going to offer it. This market's pretty soft. Almost everybody's offering it. 1 out of 10, 1 out of 20, 1 out of 100. Maybe we've already run into that landmine, but if they're not offering it, that's going to create some friction because now we got to go back and go, hey, remember that thing you signed? I got to get paid. I know I didn't go to it through detail, but you're going to have to. That's where I think this calculator could be amazing. And then third, if the market changes, if the market shifts next year, 2026, we see interest rates come down, we see the market heat up a little bit. I think more sellers are going to say, houses are selling pretty quick. I'm going to not offer any compensation and see what happens. So any of those three things that happen to this 90% strategy of just get them to sign it and move on and it's no big deal, we're going to need something for that. So that's why I think this calculator I'm going to show is going to be for everyone. Now, we've never done this before in Palm Agent history. We've had guest speakers. We've never had a residential real estate agent come on and give his perspective on how applying some of these calculators can help us in this market. And Alicia Essig, Tom Ferry's become a good friend of mine, great person in the industry, great teacher, great coach. And when I was going through some of this buyer agent compensation stuff and talking about the calculators, Tom was like, call Alicia. Alicia's my go-to. She really has spent her career focusing on this part. She's really an expert at it. So I called her, and she helped actually influence this calculator I'm going to show you, and kind of some of the language, and been very helpful. But if you don't have her Instagram, follow her. She's an incredible coach. She's a high producing agent. She's been the president of her board, president of her women's council. She's been in the industry over 26 years. And she's going to kind of do this webinar with me, and where I fall short because I'm not a residential real estate agent. She's going to help fill in some of the gaps and kind of talk about some of the calculators. So Alicia, if you're there, I want to bring you on. And your phone's unmuted. Can I make sure I can hear you okay?
Hello.
Wonderful. Great to see you, Alicia. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. If you're not following Alicia, let me go back to that last screen, Mike. I want to put your Instagram up there. But I can't brag on you enough and thank you enough for not only influencing this new calculator we're going to show everybody, but also for going through being such a great Palm Agent supporter and helping partner with us to help all the agents across the country talk through and learn some of this stuff better. So let me pull her back on, Mike, and I'm going to pull up Palm Agent, and I'm just going to dive right in. Anything, Alicia, you want to say before I go in?
No, I mean, it's easy to be a big promoter of something that is so amazing. And I'm not just saying that. I mean it. So it's a great tool, and for those of you, I hope you're either already using it, but if you're not, this is going to blow your minds. And I'm so excited for you because I love working with buyers. And there's a lot of, no knock into anybody that I work for or anything else. There's a lot of push for listings. Hey, you know what? Listings are expensive and they take a while to sell sometimes at a softer market. You get a buyer in a softer market, you can close them like that. And this app will just push it over the edge for you.
Awesome. Cool. I like the endorsement. Thank you. So two things I want to talk about before I go into the calculator. We have two calculators, and I don't want to say even Palm Agent created these. My dad was one of the original founders of these. My mother always struggled with math, and that goes back to the 80s. But two of the most popular calculators we've ever created were formulas, algorithms. It was these things that you couldn't do on a calculator or a pen and paper. You needed a computer to do. One of them was called monthly affordability, and that was the idea that buyers live in house prices.
Mm-hmm.
Buyers don't live in house prices, they live in house payments. We're a very payment-centered society. We all know budget monthly payments, and a lot of buyers were going and meeting with lenders, and they were telling them they could afford a $300,000 or $400,000 loan. And they were telling them their payment was going to be $1,500, not including taxes and insurance and PMI and all kinds of other things. Or they were going on a website and they were putting these numbers in and going, "Oh, I can afford $1,500 a month." And when they talked monthly payment, they're paying their rent, they're talking monthly payment, they're talking principal, interest, taxes, insurance, PMI. This is what I want to write a check for to live in a house. That's kind of been my experience of traveling and talking to agents all over the country. When buyers say, "I want to spend $3,000 a month," they're talking everything. That's what I want to write a check for my mortgage. And a lot of buyers talked in reverse. So they would say, not "I want to buy a $350,000 house." They would say, "I know rates have gone up a little bit. We can afford about $3,000 a month. How much house total payment? How much house should we be shopping for?" So this was one of the revolutionary calculators we created. I want to make sure everyone knows it's there. You have a slider that says you want to put 10% down. If you can put 20% down, that saves you the PMI and you can afford this much more. Depending on what you want to put down, if you want a payment of $3,000 with the property taxes for this area, because we're building it for the local area, here's how much you can afford. If this was all that Palm Agent was, this is a pretty handy tool for everybody to have on their phone. But I showed you this because I wanted to show you that the $3,000 a month is leading up to build me a house price and tell me how much I can afford. And it takes a computer to go figure out what property taxes amounts are, what the PMI is for a certain amount of payment. It takes a real formula to do this. And there were principal and interest calculators out there, but there was no principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and PMI calculators. So like this was one of our staple programs that kind of made us popular with 400,000 agents across the country. The other one I wanted to show quickly was this one called Sell to Net, because it works in a similar fashion. This one was our sellers telling us they needed to make a certain amount of money. I need to make 50 grand. I need to make 100 grand. You know, I don't know where we get these numbers, but often I always say it's unrealistic sellers, because they don't care about the price. They're not even thinking about the price you got to sell it for. They're just like, to get the down payment, to make the move, if we had this much money, we can make it work. Alicia, can you agree that we can make 50 grand? If you can, we're good. And it kind of catches us off guard, because this is a formula. To say you want to make 50 grand, well, it's like, well, how much do you owe? Okay, I owe 300. Well, you can't just take 50 grand and 300, because you have let's say a 6% real estate commission. Well, you need to know the amount before you can compute what 6% is, and you have to have title insurance, and that's a fee that's formulated based on a price. So again, it's like guessing and checking, going back and forth. You need a computer to do it.
All that stuff. Yep, you're right.
So we put in, you want to make 50 grand, and you still owe 3.25. And if you can just put in those two numbers and hit compute, it will say if you list it for 403, then you can clear $50,000 at closing. And what that gave us was a way to talk at the listing presentation, not to say, well, let me run some numbers and get back with you. And what they heard was you were going to be able to pull this off and do it. You agreed to it. You know, it gives us on the fly the ability to pull out comps that say 365 and show them the price that they would have to sell it for to clear 50 grand, and say, you know what, I don't think this is going to fly in this neighborhood. Honestly, the sellers are seeing the 403 for the first time. They're not even thinking about that number. They can even see that in the comps, and you don't even have to say anything. They can look at that and go, yeah, that's a little unrealistic. And we found doing that immediately versus calling them the next day was night and day difference in sellers' expectations and communication, and them viewing us as the expert by being able to get to that immediately. So those were two programs that were fundamental to Palm Agent popularity. The industry didn't have anything like them. And again, you don't need a computer to do 5 + 5 = 10. You know, you can use a calculator to do that. But these actually took a computer, because it's having to guess and check and go up and build to a price and back it down to the payment. Now, I showed you those two programs because they tie into the new buyer agent compensation calculator. And let me show you how that works. So I'm going to click on the calculator. Alicia, I know you've seen both of those, but I'm just going to assume you agree with everything I just said, because we've talked about them before.
Absolutely. No, again, the math, agents need, you know, if you're watching this, if you've seen me speak before, you know I'm very forthright. Agents should stop shying away from doing the math. It's not somebody else's job. I mean, and especially when you have a tool like this, if you haven't downloaded it, you better be downloading it right now. Like, having a tool like this at your disposal, it's multi-layered. It makes you look more professional. It can save you a ton of time. Again, like Jeremy said, the sell to net calculator. When you can do that immediately at that appointment, at the listing appointment, you're getting listings signed.
Big difference.
Huge difference, because that's what does the consumer want? They want to know how much they're going to net from their home, and they want to know how much their payment is. And that right here is what this app does. It's absolutely amazing.
I could have just had you say it, because that was a lot better than what I stumbled through. So now let me show you the commission calculator and how it works and who it's for. Because like I said, if you're going to go through this with the 10% are going to love this immediately. The 90%, which I would fall into, I'm just kind of like, let's sign it, let's go. This is those 3 landmines that I mentioned. Someone reading the contract and going, whoa, wait a second. Now you got to have a conversation. The ones that the seller's not offering it, if we haven't run into that yet, we will. And now we got to say, oh, hey, listen, they're not paying me. I don't want to work for free. And now we got to, that contract you signed. Or if the market heats up, let the market heat up next year. and watch it not be offered as much, and we need to be prepared for that. So that's what we want to build this for. So all you do is key in the sales price, and again, this is almost for teaching purposes. I'm not necessarily in a specific house. They've read the contract and said, wait a second, I got to agree and say, well, let me show you how this works. So I put in 525, and that's what we're going to be shopping for. That's all I do. We try to keep this really easy. And it says two things. You know, it starts with, if you do, you know, pay my fee, you know, if this is how you fund it, you choose to pay it, then it would make your payment this and your total closing cost this. So we've rolled the fee into the closing cost. It's really the two things they care about. You know, do you have 83,000? Do you have this? How does it affect me is what they want to know, not as what they're paying and who they're paying it to. It's like, well, how does that affect me? Well, here's your payment, here's your closing cost. Now, I'm going to work really hard, and I've had success at 98%. You know, I'm going to work really hard to negotiate for this, to have the seller pay it. And if they do, I'm going to hit next option. This is what that would look like. Here's your payment. Here's your total closing costs. You know, I backed out the commission, passed it over to the seller, lowered the closing cost, and this is what I'm going to work hard for. So here's the two options it shows you, if you pay it, if they pay it. Now, here's the part that you need a computer, the third part. Because now, how do we build a 2 or 2.5 or 3% fee, whatever the fee is, how do we build that into an offer? So if you want to make a full price offer, and we want to roll that commission into the offer, so we're going to ask for it back as a concession, what would we need to offer to have that happen? So to actually do that in an accurate way, it's a formula, just like sell to net or monthly affordability. So the next option is, this is kind of the showcase of this app. This is the main part, is we could offer 542. You're not paying this fee at closing. Here's what your closing costs would be, and it would raise your payment about $150 a month. That's the other option. And what we've found through talking to buyers and sellers, people want to feel like they have an option. They don't want to feel cornered. If they don't pay it, you're going to pay it. That doesn't sound like I have an option. I don't feel much in control. Being able to show them this other option of, it's going to be another $150 more a month. If we find the house you really want and they're not offering it, you know, we can make a full price offer. We can roll it into the offer. Here's what we'd offer. Here's how this would affect your payment. That's pretty strong, guys. Everybody should have that on their phone.
The consumer wants some semblance of certainty, right? So in the environment of wanting to buy a home, whether it's a first-time home buyer or someone a second time, it doesn't really matter whether they're an experienced or an inexperienced home buyer. They want information so that they can make their own decisions. And that is what this does. And so it makes it so easy for the professional, for the real estate agent, to be able to lay it out and say, this is the best case scenario, here's the worst case scenario. Worst case scenario, you're paying me. Best case scenario, you know, the seller's paying me, and then, you know, some semblance of the middle of the road. And then, you know, when we first talked about this, when, you know, Tom told you to reach out to me, and then you did, you know, I used to explain it, you know, hey, there's 3 ways to fund. It was, you know, you pay, the seller pays, or some combination of the two. And then you and I like really dove in and broke it down, and, you know, and we came up with 5, and you've covered the first 3. And so I was like, when you then showed this to me, I was like, love.
So at the very top, Alicia, at the very top, it says 50%.
Yep.
So that's the hybrid of the two.
Yes.
So the 50% option shows you the other 2 ways that this can be funded, which is they can pay half through a concession. You can pay a half through closing costs. You know, that's another way. Or if they pay half through concession and we roll half into the offer. So that's kind of the splitting of the two. So you have, here's 3 ways it can be funded, and then here's 2 other ways. And that's really the script is, you know, there's 5 different ways this can be funded. Has anyone showed you that? You know, this isn't just one option. This isn't just if they don't pay it, you're stuck with it. There's 5 different ways that can be funded. Let me walk you through. Has anyone shown you that? I can walk you through. Here's your options. You know, it'd be another $150 a month if we went with this option. But don't worry, I'm going to negotiate. I'm going to work hard. Now we've at least had the conversation with them. They're not now, the seller didn't offer any compensation. Now we're like, I need to have a conversation with them. I'm happy to get 1% at that point because I haven't said anything. Like, I really do feel like if we have this on our phone, we practice it a little bit, it's pretty smooth. It does the math for us. And
So
it
good.
gets their mind, at least. We don't have to like hammer it home. It just gets their mind seeing that there's different options. Sign the agreement. Now let's go look at some houses.
Yeah, and this fits right in with the three-part buyer consultation that I have been advocating in the Tom Ferry world now for years, and the three-part buyer consultation that I have personally been in practice since after my very first client, because she drugged me around my city, and I was like, no, 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 this there has to be a better way.
Would you briefly share that with us, Alicia? I'd love to hear. Just, I think everybody would, kind of what you're
Yeah,
doing.
yeah, the three-part buyer consultation that I swear by and that I have been now teaching at the forefront with Tom and any number of, it's a very simple recipe. And so it's three parts. The first section is dive right in and talk about agency in your local market. So what does that look like? I know that different states have different classifications, but every state now does have buyer agency requirements, as we all know from the NAR settlement. So dive into that, but then, take a couple extra minutes to really demonstrate your local expert trusted advisor hat, which is, what would the buyer be interested in knowing in your local jurisdiction? Is there a tax thing? Is there a use thing? Is there what is it, right? What is important to most home buyers when they are embarking on buying a home in your area? That's the second piece. The third one is, cover anything else that I call controls the client, right? We all hate it when someone clicks the little button that says, see a home, or I want to tour this home, but yet you've already met with that person, and yet they're clicking tour home on an online portal and they're not getting to you. So, tell them, don't walk into new construction. Don't click the, I want to see this home. Don't do this. Don't do that. Like all of that. That gives them that opportunity for you to start setting kind of boundaries. What are your working hours? How do you like to communicate? All of that happens in that first section. But you're also talking about the buyer agency agreement and what your fee is right there. Yes, in the first 15 minutes. You're saying, this is my fee. My fee is this. And, we're going to talk about how that relates. You can whip out the calculator right then and there, but you haven't talked about their price point yet, so you don't quite know. So you might have to wait till section 2, which is what I call the discovery section, where you are diving deep into what they want, right? What do they want? Do they want a detached house or an attached house? Do they want a yard? Do they want to have pets? Do they want a nice kitchen, or do they not care? Do they want wood floors? Do they want new? Do they want old? Do they want urban, suburban? Whatever your market is, ask lots and lots and lots of questions. Where do their friends live? What do they do when they're not working? Like, literally just ask as many questions as you can think of. Then you're going to say to them, okay, how much do you want to spend? Now, this is that opportunity where they may turn around and say to you, oh, I was pre-approved for $400,000. Oh, okay, that's great. Who are you pre-approved through? And they may have been pre-approved through a company that maybe is well known for approving people for more than they really should be spending. And so this is another opportunity for you to do the buyer calculator again and say, okay, so if you spend $400 and ask them how much cash, ask them how much cash, ask all the money. If anybody hears anything out of me or today, is that agents need to get very comfortable doing some math. It doesn't mean you're stepping on anybody else's toes. It doesn't mean that you're, trying to do somebody else's job. It doesn't mean any of that. It means that you are the professional and you know and understand what this looks like. Case in point, I have a client. Jeremy mentioned I put somebody under contract on Thanksgiving Day, which I did. This particular buyer, so in my local jurisdiction, I have 2 very different tax brackets, and they were looking in both of them. And the one is much higher than the other. And so she would, be on the online portal that I set up for her. And she'd be like, oh, I really like this one. And then I would run the numbers and I would send her the little report that Palm Agent does. And she'd go, oh my God, no, I can't afford that. And I go, okay, well, that's because of the taxes. And she'd go, well, why are the taxes so high? And I'd explain, it's just a calculation. It's 2% of the assessed value. And so she would continue to send me these. And I was actually on the sidelines of one of my kids playing a field hockey tournament, and I was out of town, and she's like sending me all these listings, and I was like, okay. And I just would she'd send me the listing. I'd send the Palm Agent report right back to her, and she'd go, "Oh, that's too expensive." And I got out of having to show her houses because the property wound up being too expensive. Now, on the flip side, the house that she wound up just buying, I had sent her the numbers already. She was like, "We're good." We go to look at the house. I'm standing in the house right then and there, and we start talking about negotiating styles. So I could go right in there and add in a seller contribution and add in this, and I'd just be like, "These are your numbers. Does this work for you?" Which included all the numbers that, like, even before I knew about the Palm Agent app, and I would try to do my little manual calculations with my amortization chart that I had saved on my desktop, which was excessive. And when I was teaching this 2 years ago for Tom Ferry, and I was telling people to download the amortization chart and make sure you remember your pre-licensing, but people were, I think they wanted to probably, spit nails at me. And I only wish I had known. I would have definitely talked about Palm Agent a lot longer ago, but being able to say to this buyer and her being confident, yes, I'm good with that payment. Yes, I'm good with that because we negotiated some seller help and some other things. And all of this is literally in a snap, and I can just text it right from the app. It makes you look like the local expert and trusted advisor that you should be, and you are providing some level of certainty and a roadmap that a home buyer can latch onto. Like, that's the kind of thing that will encourage repeat and referral business, because maybe, you know what? I know I'm not for everyone, right? But I get a ton of repeat and referral business. Why? Likely because of the knowledge and the way that we put the path of home buying together so that they can never say, "Oh, I didn't tell them."
Well, Alicia, you're rare. I'm not a math person. My mother was not a math person. She hated that part of real estate. Yeah, I always say most realtors don't get into the industry because they say, I really love math, and I'd like to get into real estate so that I can use that math and numbers a lot. It's usually not why we get into the industry.
No,
If
no,
anything,
I
it's the
hate it.
deterrent.
Look,
If we don't have tons of engineers in the real estate industry. We're not
and
mostly
my
we're
kids,
relational salespeople type A. We don't sit in corners and crunch numbers all day. That's typically not.
no,
So, like, the vast majority of us are all in the same camp.
yes,
And if it didn't have Palm Agent, I would struggle with the numbers too, because real estate math is challenging. It's
yes,
tough. But you're talking to the best 10,000 agents in the industry, because these are the mathletes. They get it. They understand. So I appreciate you showing that. I want to show one more thing while I'm on the screen. This screen up in the top right. We've also done this for you because a lot of people want to see it. So they call it a share sheet in the very top right. It will take this information that I just went through and give you a really nice display walking you through those 5 different scenarios. So if someone wants to see it, you can email them, you can text them. It has all the disclaimers on it, and it has
everybody's
your
jaws
branding
are just
on
on
it.
the floor.
What's that?
I hope everybody's jaws are just on the floor, because this is so good. There is nothing else out there that can help an agent say, "This is my fee and this is how it gets paid. And here it is in a beautiful form, emailed or texted right from your phone." It's just so good. Bravo.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. You helped a lot, but it's also our community that's given feedback, and again, it's cool to be the ones that create this, because I don't think anyone else has it. It gives you an advantage. It gives you an advantage when you can run circles around everyone else talking about this stuff and do it in a smooth manner, because it's when someone says, "You mean if they don't pay it, I got to pay you 30 grand? Wait, I don't know if I want to sign this." You got to be prepared for when that happens, because it's
Well,
if it hasn't happened yet, it will.
let me bring up an analogy real quick because it's very helpful. And what I actually came up with this with one of my coaching clients. So you just said, hey, well, the consumer will say, "Oh my God, if it's not paid by the seller, I have to pay you." Well, think about it like this. When you go to a doctor, when you're signing in, they hand you a paper right now that says, "Here is the cost for your visit today. We're going to run it through your insurance company, and So long as your insurance company covers everything, you'll be good. But if not, you are responsible for this bill, period. And that's it. And I don't know any other person that hasn't been to the doctor in the last couple of years where you haven't had that piece of paper put right in front of you. It is literally no different. It's the same thing. We perform a service and we get paid for that service. Where that fee comes from is what is beautifully laid out in your app.
Perfect. I love it. Let me show them one other addition. This update went live this week, and it's cool because what we've done is in Quick Estimate. So I always say buyer's quick estimate, seller's net sheet. That's 90% of the value of Palm Agent. Those are the two cornerstone apps of Palm Agent. But buyer's quick estimate, when you put in a $525,000 house, we've added this in. So here's your monthly payment. Here's your monthly closing cost. Those are the two numbers most buyers want to know, and so you can get to them in seconds. Over here on the top left, if you swipe over, we've added this. This is new, and it's called modified offer. What we've done is we've added a way for that number that we got through. You know, it skips the first two steps. It skips the other one. It just gives you that number. This isn't necessarily to show buyers. This is for you to go, okay, or you could swipe over and go, you know, this is what we'd have to offer to roll my commission into the offer, okay? And I already had the commission put in on the screen before. Now, it shows you how much the payment goes up if we offer a little more. That's that third step in the calculator. It shows it to you immediately straight from Quick Estimate. What it also does is if you hit edit, it gives you a way to say, hey, listen, I get it. They're not offering compensation. You know, I would be willing to go down to 2 to get this done. I want to be a good partner, and here's how we can get the deal closed. Let me see if we can get them up to 1. And that leaves you at the bottom 1% responsibility. Now, where it says seller concessions, we've gone in and built in for every scenario. So if you did a VA loan, an FHA loan, a conventional, depending on how much you put down, we've gone ahead and built in your max concession. So you can't put a 10% concession because 6% is the max. So we've gone into each scenario, don't have to worry about it, and built the rules in. And then you can say, well, let's ask for a 4% concession, and I'll cut my fee to 1, or I'll stay at 3. It just gives you a way to play with the numbers a little bit more on a specific scenario, save that, and then adjust the number. So just another way to access the information. There's the concession calculator right up here at the top, compensation calculator, and then there's in Quick Estimate. If you know it's there, swipe over, and we've built it in where you can get that number immediately. So that's 2 things. The other thing, Alicia, I wanted to show everybody was the calculator. It may be the best one we've created in the last 5 years. It's been so popular, the buy now or buy later, because this is the one I say I've sold 6 houses on, even not being a realtor, but I've actually gotten 6 people as I walk them through the math. This is so relevant for this market because rates they went up so quickly. Everybody froze and said, I don't want to buy. Every talking head said the market's going to crash, and it hasn't. And buyers are kind of left confused, going, do I wait? Now the election's passed. Do I wait and let rates come back in the 5s? I think they'll come back there eventually, maybe next year. I don't know when. And then I'll pull the trigger, but 6 is still not a number I want to digest. And what I say is you have to get people to also be looking at appreciation. We still have a supply-demand problem. We still have too much demand, not enough supply. Even though inventory levels are up, they're not where they need to be. Look at all the economists, they'll tell you that. So the reason we haven't had a market sell-off like everyone's been predicting on TV is it's going to be up to us to educate our buyers, not the newspapers, not the news networks. It's going to be up to us having these conversations, and I think we can play in a really important part in this industry, one by one. If we walk the buyers through, timing interest rates hasn't ever really been a good strategy. And let me show you an alternative. So you put a $750 and $50,000 house, whatever they're shopping for, whatever range. And again, I'm sitting at dinner just pulling this out and walking them through it. And it says, okay, a $750,000 house, and this is kind of like quick estimate. It shows you this is what the payment would be, this is what your closing costs would be. And we had some defaults in there of 10% down, et cetera. But here's your payment, here's your closing costs, here's the numbers most people are looking for. Now, what this does, though, we call it a progressive calculator. You swipe over, and it says, what do you think about appreciation? You know, you've been waiting for the last 2 years for rates to come down. You've been waiting for the last year for rates to come down. They haven't come down, but you know what's happened is prices have continued to go up. You know, look at $35 trillion of debt. Will probably be, you know, by this next president's term, will probably be close to $50 trillion of debt. The spending between both parties has been out of control. And what that's doing is it's causing our dollars to be worth less and assets to be worth more. So not only is it a supply-demand problem and an interest rate problem, but it's a inflation problem. And if you look at it from all sides, houses probably aren't going to get cheaper. Now, I'm okay if you want to say they are. You know, this is a calculator. We're not trying to manipulate anyone. So that's what I say. Like, do you think they're going to go up 1%? You know, we put a depreciation button on here. So you think they're going to go down 1.5%. Well, that 750 house could cost you 727. Let them play with the numbers and see what they think is going to happen. But I'm telling you, with my opinion, I think we're looking at, you know, national averages. Most people are saying around 3% in 2025. Okay? And we've even gone a step further by going down and saying, we just updated this a few weeks ago. Here's what NAR, MBA, Fannie, Wells, and Goldman are saying about 2025, the next 12 months. So, you know, you don't want to pay more for this house. And when you look at this number 803, the calculator almost could stop here. Buyers need to let that sink in a little bit, that this $750,000 house could cost 803 in a year or two. Let 3.5% appreciation work for 2 years, and no one knows. That doesn't sound like too bad. You know, if I got a 5% rate, that may be worth it. That's kind of how most of us think. We're looking for a reason not to do it. But stare that 803 number down the barrel, and it's like, I don't want to pay more. I don't want to creep into 800,000. I don't want to pay more for this house. You know, maybe if it came back down, I would. You know, that's the kind of the conversations we all have. So show them the 803 number, 2 years of 3.5% appreciation working against them. Show them what the experts are saying. Play with the numbers. Try 5%, try 1%, try depreciation, whatever they think. And then this is the third leg to this, is another option. And this calculator is really powerful. And it says, what if you bought at today's price, refied in a year, if rates come down? If next year, if in 2026 we see a 5% rate, refi, but lock in the price. And this shows you a side-by-side that would save you about $600 a month versus paying 803 at a lower price. You know, if you locked in today's price and refied, it would save you about $600 a month on your payment. But most importantly, almost double the equity in 2 years, because now you've had appreciation work for you and not against you for 2 years. If I'm having trouble picking which one I would say is the most important calculator right now, but this one may be it, Alicia. Like, this simple conversation is the conversation we're having with our buyers and sellers.
Can you go back to the slide before?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that one, and then scroll down. And then the tiny fine print says, something about
national average for the last 42 years, according to Freddie, has been 4.92% nationally.
Listen.
Once I understood that there's a reason people freak out that 60 years ago a house was 40 grand. And one day, I don't know when, they're going to say, I can't believe you could buy a house for $5 million. When you understand supply and demand and interest rates, and most importantly, inflation, they keep printing more money, so our dollars are worth less. Houses are always going to go up over time. I don't know what's going to happen in a 1 year period, but in 30 years, they will be more expensive than they are today. National average for 42 years has been 4.92%.
If I were to have a coaching moment with everybody that's listening here, because that's what I do, this right now would be, I would run a scenario for your current average sales price in your market. I would record your screen as you're doing it. Take your time, record your screen, then stick it in CapCut, narrate it, show these parts right here, this part where you've got, what is expected and then the national average over the last 42 years, because the consumers, your friends, your family, your sphere of influence, everyone, the consumers, again, back to that certainty, data tells a story, and this is the data that is the story that you want to tell. This is the data. Owning real estate helps build wealth. Buying today, sure, is the interest rate what you want? No, it's not. It is what it is. Those days of 2 and 3% interest rates, they are gone. Forget it. They're not going to happen anymore. We have to live in what we have today, and this calculator can be a huge demonstrator, whether it's a video that you park in an email that you send out to your database, whether it is something that you put on any of the social media sites, demonstrating how good it is when you're trying to pick up a buyer for next year or stack your pipeline. I would literally be doing a video today, right now, that says, thinking about buying a home, but you want to wait until the interest rates come down? Check this out.
And Alicia, I have nothing to add to that. But I would say trying to time interest rates, like let rates come down. What do you think? How hard is it going to be again to buy a house? Like what happened in 2020?
If it's come down, then that means that the economy is not doing well.
Right.
And then that means that if rates are coming down, like I've seen a lot of, I think, people sort of spouting off on social media, which, we all just need to just stop. But, oh, I can't wait until housing prices come down. Okay, well, you do realize that if housing prices come down, that we're in a lot more trouble than just the housing prices. Like that's not going to be a good thing. Housing prices going down is a depreciation, which nobody wants, right? Even if you go on, NAR or the Mortgage Bankers Association on the lower end of appreciation, it's still appreciation, which is still better than not owning. Not owning.
It's going to get more expensive over time. As soon as that clicks, when I saw our friends at Keeping Current Matters come out and say in the last 6 recessions, 4 of them, this is over the last 45 years, 4 of them we had appreciation. 1 of them we had like 1% depreciation, and 1 we had 19%, which caused the recession. That was 2008, and that's nothing like anything we're in right now. It's like houses. This is real people with real dollars putting real down payments, paying cash for houses. That's not coming unless you believe that's coming. You should buy a house today. It will be the best time.
Well, and real estate is, I had someone who, one of the many people that I've learned from over the years, actually talked to me about this, and they said real estate is generational, right? So if you think about the different groups of people, right? You have your first-time home buyers, then you have your move-up buyers, and then you have your downsizers, right? And it's all a domino, and everybody is connected. And so, in the early 2000s, we didn't have enough supply, and we had a lot more first-time home buyers because the rates were really low. So it was fun and convenient and easy to buy a house, right? But that sucked up. And then you've got the current downsizing generation, which wants to age in place much longer. They don't want the 55 and older communities. They don't want the independent living. Many of them don't want that. So they're actually holding on to what we call the big house, right? Which is the move-up buyer house. And the problem is there are many home buyers, they're actually skipping the first-time home buyer house. They're buying the second house. They're not buying.
Yep, we just froze for a second. If anyone wants to know if this is live.
They're not buying they're just skipping in. So there's a ton of, it's congested, right? Because they also did not build houses in 09, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. They didn't really start building houses again until like 16, 17, 18. And so we have been recuperating from a massive housing deficit for years. And then they just put oil on the whole thing by lowering the interest rates into the 2%. So there has just not been enough housing. For those,
And I always say you can't legislate change, you educate change. And it's like if they made it illegal tomorrow to hate people, it wouldn't do anything. It's like through education, and it's not going to be the news that's going to educate them. It will be real estate agents. Residential real estate agents will have these conversations, will teach buyers and sellers what's happening with interest rates and house prices and inflation. We'll show them cool calculators like this and walk them through the logic, and people are going to go, oh, wait a second. You know, I wish I had bought 2 years ago. Wait a second, I wish I had bought 4 years ago. And in 2 years, they're going to go, I wish I'd bought today. And walking them through the math, I mean it when I say I've sold 6 homes. Like when I show my friends this, because it's like a competitive thing for me. I don't even get anything out of it other than I'm helping them.
yeah.
I'm pretty persistent. But as I walk them through the logic of what they're saying, it's like the light bulb clicks.
Well,
And
that same buyer that, I would send her the buyer net sheet and she would sort of go crickets on me. And the same buyer that just went under contract, I actually did a buy now or buy later. I did that with them because I was like, okay, let me, because at one point after I had sent her some and she was like, I just can't afford anything. She was very dramatic, right? Home buyers are so dramatic. And I was like, settle down. And I was like, okay, let me do the buy now, or wait. And, and I sent it to her. And I think that, she said this was super helpful to re-engage me. Like, okay, there is a bigger reason that, I need to tweak a couple things here and there, in order to make this happen, but I will. And I think it's worth it making it happen now instead of waiting. And so you can get people off the fence. You can use this just in your database, wake up leads using this. Like,
well,
again,
a lot of buyers here, oh, you just want to make a commission. So of course you're going to tell me to buy now. It's always a good time, right? And it's like, yes, but let me show you. Like, it's in your best interest also for you to buy now. And that's the part where it almost takes you out of the equation a little bit, shows them the math, and then it's like,
now here's what I will add, one nifty little nugget of information. If you're, at the holiday table this year and they're like, oh, the economy's just so bad. Nobody should buy a house. It's just terrible. Why would anybody do that? Right. You have, the great from, oh shoot, you just mentioned it. Oh, my brain just went out. What's the guy? Keeping Current Matters. The former owner.
yeah, Steve Harney.
Thank you. The great Steve Harney.
Yeah.
He did a thing just about a year ago where he talked about Uncle Bob at the table, and this is the way to go back to Uncle Bob. When you do this calculator, the buy now, you can just add in, just add this little nugget in. Did you know that every time a house sells, it actually pumps about $100,000 back into the local economy? And they might go, that's a good thing for the local economy. Why? Well, you have the whole suite of people that just got paid. The realtors, yes, we got paid. So did the mortgage people. So did the title companies. So did the inspectors. So did the termite inspectors. But you know who else gets paid? Lowe's, the paint store, Target. You're buying hoses and trash cans and furniture store and wall and home goods and you name it. It pumps that much money back into the economy. So buying and selling real estate is a very, very good thing, not only for the homeowner and the home buyer, it is good for the entire economy and neighborhood.
Steve was the best. Alicia, so I'm gonna show one more calculator and then we're gonna let everybody go. The seller's net sheet we call the best calculator in all of Palm Agent. It's like simple, it's easy, and there's no way to do a listing presentation without a seller going, well, okay, if you think it's worth this and you're going to charge me this and I still owe that, what's going to be left for me at the end? Like that conversation is fundamental to every listing presentation, regardless of how we navigate it. I want to make sure everybody saw this, that we added in, if you put in the price of what you think the house is worth and you can plug in the address, we've got HomeLink tied into Palm Agent, where it will, if you don't have the specific property taxes, if you're using a percentage, this will show you last year's taxes and give you a chance to add them in if you'd like to make the estimate a little more accurate. And then depending on if they know their payoff, a lot of times sellers are like, I don't know what we owe. We bought it here and I think we owe this. Let me try to find a piece of paper. And this is just really smooth. We can go in and show you, well, here was the last loan recorded. And we even go in and show you, because sometimes in some areas you can't pull the rate, depending on the disclosure, but we say the average rate of that year that you closed was 2.91. So I'll go, this will get me really close. Hit compute. We can run the payments as long as they've made their payments from that day that they took out the loan to today and say you should owe about $391,000. So I say use estimate, and then I hit compute, and that's the best accurate, fast, easy seller's net sheet in the industry. And since we've added that home link, I just want to make sure everybody knows about that. I've shown you the commission calculator. I've showed you buy now versus buy later. I kind of threw in monthly affordability if they talk payment and they want to know how much they can afford, depending on where the rates are. That's a killer. And then sell to nets when they say, I want to make 50 grand, I want to make 100 grand. If you ever have that being pitched at you, make sure you have this to do quickly and you have the comps, because you don't want to come back and go, let me run some math and see if that's going to be possible, because they're going to hear you agreed to it. You said they could get 50, and now they're going to come back and you're calling me tomorrow and you're saying that that's not possible, and you know how that goes. So I ran through a few calculators. I hope everyone found them useful. Alicia, thank you so much for coming on. Like, being our first real estate agent guest in 20 years is kind of special. And thank you for coming into the community and sharing your insight. I'd love to have you back on again. I hope everybody got a lot out of this today. Watch for our masterclass series coming up in January that we're going to kick that off. And we're just going to kind of pick a calculator a week, maybe two, and just go a little deeper into each calculator to make sure that everyone knows how to use them. Thank you to all of our title partners. Our title partners, guys, are what make this possible. If you notice, Palm Agent's free, and we can't eat off of that. So, like, we've gone in and gotten the best partners in the industry who have helped provide us data, bought advertising, and made this app free for everyone. We have a premium section that's $1 a month, and that doesn't make us any money either. So, like, it's our great title partners that invited you to this. Make sure you're thanking them with all of your business, because they're trying to invest back into you to make you better, because they know that's how they get better. You have to win first. So thanks for everybody for jumping on, giving us a few minutes of your time. I hope you found this useful. Thank you, Alicia, again. Follow Alicia on Instagram, and we'll see all of you soon. Everyone have a wonderful day. Thanks, Alicia, again for joining us.